Hey everyone, it's Kary Oberbrunner. I have with me an incredible author who is just absolutely crushing the charts right now. How are you doing today, Walker?
Kary, I'm doing great. Thanks so much. Great to be with you.
Wow. Why do you think today, more than probably any other time in human history, why is your book relevant?
That's what it, Kary. So okay. If I'm completely honest, I feel the need to be a little bold. Okay, and I'm
Okay.
going to make some claims that are totally outlandish and maybe not sound as humble as I believe I am.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the deal. So 4 years ago, in October of 2018, I released Buy Then Build. Okay, and the
Yes.
concept of acquisition entrepreneurship had not been organized in such a way to that day. Okay,
Mm.
and I'm not saying that Buy Then Build has been um, sort of like it's not a New York Times best-selling book that changed the world in one day, right?
Yeah. Right.
What we've seen since that day is that the concept of
Mm.
entrepreneurs buying existing businesses rather than starting from scratch has built steam over the last 4 years. And a
Wow.
lot of other people have kind of adopted the concept. And so more and more people are becoming aware of this as potentially a better way to
Oh
reach
yeah.
the same end goal. And so I think that, just by we released a hardcover book this week. And
Yes.
I think
Congratulations.
that the excitement around the book just kind of took off because of all the groundwork that's been laid the last 4 years, I think.
It's huge. I want to show people what's going on because I study books a lot. I have some amazing clients. But first of all, you crossed 1,000 reviews in the last couple days. So,
That's
man,
really fantastic.
it's unbelievable. I mean, listen, I got 12 books out. I've been out for 20 years. I don't have one that's been over 1,000. So, wow, congratulations to you.
Thanks, Kate.
Um, Number two, your book was, I don't know if it still is, but it was the number one ebook in the world on I mean, that's pretty powerful. Um, Barnes& and Noble, one of the largest book sellers in the world. Um, you crushed it, and you were at 2, and I texted you, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you're at 2, that's incredible," and you're like, "Dude, get me to number 1," and I'm like, right?
I mean, how do
And
you
I'm like, "All
respond?
right, man, I'll see what I can do," you know? But I'll tell you what, I mean, people are responding and the book's fantastic. I mean, right now, you're getting incredible categories. You're number 70. And with it, I mean, I want people to realize like this is millions and millions and millions of books. So amazing. And then do you think COVID has anything to do with like this whole hey, companies are able to be bought? I mean, I'm gonna interview you because I don't know a lot about this topic.
Hmm. So, I mean, look, I mean, we can talk about reviews, right, Kary? Let me circle back to your COVID question. I want to talk about this. We can talk about reviews, but here's the thing. I think that the little thing that makes Buy Then Build different, okay, is not only that it was, I got the idea to write this book in 2004 when I
Wow.
went out and tried to buy an existing company, and I was like, why is there no good information on this,
Mm,
right? And I went out and I found this very like opaque and fragmented market that
mm,
was really hard to navigate. And I was like, well, I can write the book now, but like I'm not on the list of people that are allowed to write it. So what do I actually need to do to write it?
mm.
And I spent the next 11 years living it and
Wow.
investing every bit of my time and just trying to figure out how do I leverage existing infrastructure to get like millions from the bank and like and then running companies and selling them and all the rest of it. And so by the time I hit to 2015, I'm not sure how many companies I had acquired at that point, but the point
Mm,
is that I lived it and I did it, right? And I set out to write the single best book I possibly could. I wanted it to be, kind of the seminal work on this category. And I started by interviewing other entrepreneurs that had bought companies
ooh,
because I was like, I don't want to be the guy. Like I don't want this to be like, look at me and how cool I am. Like that
yeah,
was not the deal.
Yeah.
So I went out and I was like, I'm going to be like Jim Collins. I'm going to like find all the best practices like hidden in all this stuff. And what I found was everyone that I interviewed was completely different, had a completely different situation, a completely different business model. And they would all start by saying, I'd say like, what were you looking for? Right. And they'd say, oh, look, Walker, I was just looking for the same thing everyone's looking for. I was looking for, and then they would answer it completely different from everybody else.
Wow.
And I
Okay.
started realizing, wow, there is no best practices. Instead, there's different approaches. And what we need to do is create frameworks around all of the different opportunity styles.
And
Right.
that's what the book does. It presents a framework.
That's it. And so not only was it, and by the way, like the AE matrix is just, it's a 4-quadrant thing that's sitting in here. And this is something that, people, when they read the book, they'll look at it and they'll think about it for, about as long as it takes to read a paragraph. It took me 3 years to get the quadrants right. It just was up on my whiteboard, right? And I would interview someone else and they would just cook. And so here's the point, is that I really tried to write a book that that would be an exceptional experience to read. In other words, if I'm getting good reviews, it has nothing to do with marketing. It has to do with the fact that I lived it for a decade. I invested my entire net worth. I invested all of my time, and I spent 4.5 years writing the book, including starting over completely from a blank page 4 times.
Wow.
And then scrapping chapters at the very end and rewriting them as it all came together. So, I mean, it was a monumental effort.
Yeah.
Easy to look at this and be like, wow, you're number 1 on September or whatever the day is.
Yeah.
But like this is
It's a slow build.
started in 2004.
I
Yeah.
like that. I like that. I want authors to realize that, because you're teaching us about this concept, but then you're also teaching us a deeper concept, which is, hey, listen, be the number 1 book in your category, interview smart people,
Yes.
work the model. Don't just crank out a book. I listened to the 30-hour Warren Buffett audiobook. And I don't know why I did, but I did. And in there, he talks about, I don't know if you've read it, but he talks about an example about companies that he said were like, I forget, like cigar butts or something.
Mhm.
And he said that most people disregarded these companies, said they were done, but he would find them and he would essentially get 1 or 2 more puffs out of them. This was the example that the author used.
Uh-huh.
And that's how he claims that he made his initial fortune, was, I think, kind of what you're saying, where he bought it and then he would get some say in how he could steer the company, and then the company would do well. Is that, I mean, talk to us. What are you talking
Yeah.
about?
So, yeah, I think what you're picking up on there is, I had startups before, right? I mean, the book starts out with, we were in one of the top 10 accelerator programs in the world. We had recruited a Microsoft executive to be our CEO. We went out and raised capital. We were overfunded. We had this SaaS platform that users adored, right? And 18 months after startup, we were completely broke, out of money. Like, we didn't want to raise more because the equity had already all been given away. So, it's just sort of wrapping up shop. And the thing is, like, I've spent, I used to live in the Bay Area. Like I've spent a lot of time around entrepreneurs. I've started companies, right? Right. And the thing is that, like, something happened along the line where I would be in these groups of entrepreneurs and I would inevitably get introduced as, hey, do you know Walker? He buys and sells companies. And it would just completely infuriate me, because it was like, okay, what am I? Am I like Richard Gere and Pretty Woman? Like, I am an entrepreneur. This is hard, right? Like, this is just as hard. It's just that I can get to $8 million in about 2 months because I'm able to, find a business and buy it with leverage, right? And so it's one of these where we're just raising the bar to where we start, okay? And what you're picking up on is a lot of these startups, and like from the tech boom all the way up really until 2018, every time we thought of entrepreneurship, we thought of Steve Jobs, we thought of Elon Musk, we thought of all these, like, sexy Silicon Valley, people on, And the thing is that when you look at startups, we all know that 90% of them completely fail, right? I mean, we just know like 1 out of 10 kind of makes it, right?
Mm.
And yet we sit there and we sort of celebrate these successes of these like ultra successful, a percent kind of entrepreneurs. And I'm in St. Louis. And so when I walked up and down, Y down Boulevard, right, with all the big houses here in St. Louis, I'd walk around and be like, there's no Silicon Valley startup entrepreneurs in these 6,000 square foot homes, right? Like with 12 bedrooms. Like, what do they do? And I went to the Owen School of Business, and I remember sitting next to alumni, and one of them, was this kind of like fat cat, very calm, clearly had made it. And what he did was he owned a business that it was the inside piece of those what are those?
Lights.
No, the lights, those like lights in the ceiling, like
Not the can lights.
the can lights. Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. So he did the inside part of can lights, and like he was one of 2 people or whatever that did it. And I was just like, that. So to your point, it's kind of like, Viewpoint was cool. It was sexy. It was things like Microsoft and SaaS and like all the rest of it. It was lightweight, used on your iPad. While this guy is sitting around making, I don't know how much money doing can lights, right? So to your point, there was this discrepancy of what entrepreneurship meant. And when I looked at entrepreneurs, I found that most of them were doing things like, starting an SEO company, right? It wasn't really 0 to 1 type stuff most of the time, right? It was like, I'm going to start a business like an SEO company when there's already 15 of them in my neighborhood. You know what I mean? Like, just go, like, why don't we roll these up? Like, right? Like, so that was kind of the part, which was like, why are we underestimating cash flow and overestimating innovation? Like, all of us can't be the greatest innovator. So yeah, to your point.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. It's not necessarily undervalued. It's by switching the game and saying, like, I know that I can have impact, but I'm going to base success on earnings. Kary, it's kind of a Moneyball of entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah.
Like, instead of, what did they say in Moneyball? Get on base.
Yeah. Like, instead of hiring the biggest and best, it's like, how many people can we get on the base, and we'll win through a hodgepodge strategy that nobody is picking up on, right?
So instead of starting from scratch and trying to create a company, let's get on base. Let's acquire a company with existing revenue, existing earnings, existing infrastructure, probably SOPs. There's problems, but now at least I know what the problems are. And my startup companies that you just walk in, you're like, what? Like, I don't even know what to do.
So you're saying, like, it's easier to steer a plane that's in the air than to be on the ground and have to build from nothing.
Well, to that analogy, I think it's like when we blast rocket ships into orbit, don't we use like 98% of fuel getting it just into orbit?
Yeah.
Well, you can buy a rocket already in orbit, and like, you don't have to do that part.
Wow.
Right?
Wow. That's good. Wow. So there's probably some myths. Like, oh, you got to have, like $50 million in the bank to do this. I mean, does your book go into those details about, hey, like, here's the way that you could do this?
Yeah. So I have a lecture I do where I go into all the myths and sort of break them down. The book does it more subtly, right? And in other words, I think that the thing is like we talked about, 1 out of 10 startups kind of make it, right? But what's really, really interesting is that what we don't know is what happens to the ones that actually make it. What does that mean? What does that look like, right? It turns out 4%, Kary, 4% of all companies in the United States exceed $1 million in revenue, annual revenue.
Wow.
96% of startups that make it never exceed $1 million in revenue.
90%, 96% of those that make it.
Of the ones that make it.
Wow.
Okay? So here's the point. We're all starting companies thinking we're going to be that one, right? We're like Han Solo, like, don't tell me the odds, like driving into the minefield, right? And then the thing is that like, we never really realize, like, wow, like what I'm doing, the odds that I'm going to end up, having a company that's doing whatever, $650,000 in annual revenue every year, meaning barely surviving, right, is really high. And the thing is that you can actually go out and acquire an existing company doing $1 million in revenue or more with 10% down of the purchase price.
Wow.
Now, what does that mean? What is the price, right? Like all this kind of stuff. But here's the thing. I want to make this very approachable. The 10% down to buy a company maybe doing 1.5 million in revenue. And forgive me, I'm having to make a lot of assumptions, but let me just kind of walk you through this. $1.5 million in revenue, the cash infusion to acquire a business like that, okay, is less than the average down payment for a house in America. So I'm not going to say that we should all go out and buy a company instead of buying a house, but I mean, the cash on cash return is over 100%. Wow. And you get equity build up, and you now have a company that you can own, right? Which gives you the impact that you wanted, that vehicle for financial growth that you wanted, like all of those things. And so, yeah, it's kind of a hack.
It's great. That's great.
Yeah.
We got people all the way from Alaska to New Jersey to Montreal to Chicago. I mean, there's a whole bunch of people listening. A lot of people get the replay as well. So I believe when I chatted with your team about this new exciting version you're launching, the hardcover, we talked about what can you do. You basically said, look, I'm gonna essentially give away the ebook for 99 cents. Yeah. And you had this really cool bonus where you invest 99 cents and you get a bonus worth $99. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, there's some good math here. I mean, if you can spend $1 and get $100, you should probably do that all day long. What is this bonus that people get, and how do they achieve it?
This is actually really cool. And Kary, I want to tell you that I actually got it last night and I was kind of blown away. All right. So can I take a minute and unpack this? Because I think it's worth it. So we had this idea of, hey, look, we obviously we've got a book that's, whatever it is, $20 or whatever. And then, it led me to start the acquisition lab because so many people were like, will you help me find and buy a business? But that's like, $5,000 plus kind of program. And I do have a sort of masterclass out there that, is a couple $1,000s. But the thing is I was like, we need something that like people can just pick up for like $100. That's like, I read the book, I can get something else that's like really awesome. Okay. And here's what we came up with. We came up with the idea. So we run the acquisition lab. All right. And what we do is it's a vetted program. So only about 1 in 4 gets accepted. Okay. And then we put them through a month-long intensive with like 2 tracks, one-on-ones. We're building, our IP sort of buyer profile.
Yeah.
We're getting them, pre-qualified with a bank so they can understand what they're looking for, access to capital, how to do deal flow, how to evaluate deals, how to analyze deals with our modeling tools, all the stuff. And then right as we're building the final case study, right, of the whole intensive, we give them an Ask Me Anything session with me. Why do I do that? Because if I do an AMA session right at the beginning, everyone asks me the same questions every time. If I run them through all the content and then I say now, they ask me really good questions, right? And it's like strategy and like specific and like what happened here. It's not none of this like surface stuff, right? They've really gone deep. And so we ended up having, I think we're on cohort 25 right now. And so we have, and each cohort has about 3 or 4 hours of this AMA session. So what we did was we took about 4 of these cohorts, we chopped up a lot of the best Q&A. Because of confidentiality, we removed all of the people asking questions. So it's just like great content, no filler. Kary, it's over 65 questions. Okay. It's 5.5 hours of content with no filler. Okay. It's really good stuff. I mean, it's like the best stuff I got. Right. And so the thing is, we decided to launch it for $99, but because of you, we're giving it away. And so, yeah. And so, we're going to, if you buy a copy of Buy Then Build ebook for just 99 cents, mail the receipt to bonus@buythenbuild.com. And we will send you a discount code with a link to the course where you can enter that in and get it at no charge. I'm going to say it, Kary. that's not all. There's more. Check
Yeah.
this out. When we were building the acquisition lab, okay, I was working through the analysis section, and I was like, okay, like I'm gonna build all of these things that I kind of use, okay, but I was talking with a former MBA classmate of mine who is a partner at a CPA firm that does, buy side diligence for private equity firms in the middle market, like 50 to $250 million companies, right?
Mm.
And I was like, well, what do you do? Blah, blah, blah. And he was shared with me, well, we sell these, basically these models. We put these models together and we'll sell them for like $50,000. And I was like, what? And I asked more questions and I figured out it was really very similar to what lawyers do, where they'll sort of have their template documents. They'll make it specific for that client, and then they'll sell that specific document for a lot of money, right? So I went on a search and found two guys that build modeling tools for both private equity and venture capital firms. Like the guys that build the templates, right? I paid them a little over $10,000 to help me build out a modeling tool for small business valuations and small business modeling. Okay. I then hired a master's student in accounting to move it all up into Google Drive and recode the whole thing. Okay. It's this 13 tab like modeling tool, right? And at the end of the day, it wasn't a tool that I used. And so I ended up incorporating some of the best stuff into the stuff that we use in the lab. But I've got this thing just sitting here, blowing dust on it, that like is this ultra powerful modeling tool that cost me over $10,000 to build. And we're including that as well.
Wow. So a modeling tool, and again, my audience comes from different backgrounds. Tell us what, I know we got about 8 minutes left. Tell us what the modeling tool does, like in case that's jargon to somebody.
Yeah, sure. So it's a financial accounting. It's a financial modeling tool that will help you create predictive analysis for the future performance of a business. Okay.
Wow.
The other thing that this tool does very, very well, and admittedly, one of the reasons why I didn't use it is because the direction that they built was towards private equity companies that are buying multiple companies all at once.
Gotcha.
So they can compare different acquisitions to one another, as well as the tab that basically shows like if I bought all of them, right? Like how would that look, right? Like doing a whole roll up. It's a little advanced.
Yeah.
And I need the audience to forgive me because I never went through and recorded training. But it's basically like a nuclear weapon with no instruction manual. But I spent a lot of money on it, and it's just sitting there. So
Yeah. But I think your book with the Q&A, with this modeling tool, it sounds like they really have in a box.
It's amazing.
A buy then build concept. And I love what you're saying. Like everyone thinks, oh, of course I'm going to get a house, but we don't really think that way.
A house is an expense.
Yeah.
A business pays you a salary. It pays its own principal and interest down, and it pays for cash for reinvesting into the business to grow it. Imagine if you bought a house and it paid you. That's cool. We'd all do that. That's what a business does. I mean, you can't sleep there, but maybe, I guess you could. It'd look a little scrappy. You need, And look, Kary, I mean, here's the thing. I don't want to sugarcoat this, right? Like buying a company and running a company is very hard. Like I almost didn't publish the book even right at the end. Because I was like, people are going to buy this. And like, what if they do it? Right? Like this is crazy.
Yeah.
Right. And, a lot of times you're signing personal guarantees on, leverage in order to buy these companies, and you're putting a little cash infusion down. I had a call yesterday with one of the members of the lab, and she's struggling with a couple key employees like post acquisition, right? So this is hard work. This is not like, I don't know, make $1 million overnight. This is hard work. In the right companies, you've got to be a leader, right? All the rest of it. Pulling it back to COVID, though, your question right at the beginning. The way that COVID has impacted this is that a lot of people obviously don't want to go back to work. Engagement at work is at an all-time low, I think, right? And everyone got to go home and chill out, right? And work from there and realize, wow, I spent a lot of time doing things that don't matter. You can buy the 4-hour work week if that's what you want to do. I bought an e-commerce business for, I can't remember, around $1.6 million in 2016. Okay, it was a 18% cash infusion, SBA loan on the rest of it. Okay, um, I grew it from 1.8 in revenue. Today it's doing 3.2 million. Right. I mean, the debt has been almost all, not almost all, but I'd say 70% paid down. And now
Wow.
I work on that business like 4 hours a week. I bought the
Wow.
4-hour work week, right? And in the meantime, I've built up all the equity because the business is paying the loan off, right?
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Pay myself a salary. I acquired a team, which I then could go out and start buying other, e-commerce businesses if I so chose. It's paying the debt down, and it is also in. I've spent a lot of the cash flow reinvesting in the infrastructure of the business to get us there, right?
So good. It's so good. So give us a story of
Okay.
somebody in your acquisition lab, and I'd love for you to share your website too.
Mhm.
Is there people who've had success, and what type?
But yeah, I mean, okay. So in the last 18 months, okay, this is really when we sort of, I'll call it acquisition lab
2.0?
2.0. The
Yeah.
1.0 was kind of short lived, but it was like, let me get my content together. Let me just start helping some people, right? And we were like formalizing it. A little detail, I hired a curriculum designer. Like, I didn't want to be like, I'm an entrepreneur who wrote a book, like buy my course. Like, this is different. Okay. I hired a curriculum designer that does accredited curriculum and also certification programs. And her and I built out a lot of it. And then I brought in, my chief of staff, who took a company from 3 billion to 6 billion doing buy side biz dev, and then quit and did 5 years post merger integration just on the human side, like the culture side. Right. So then I recruited the former head of the career center at the Owen School of Business. She works with us. And so the four of us together sort of created this program,
Mm.
right, to help get people through. And it's like, you got to focus on the things that you don't think you want to focus on. If we're going to accelerate your experience getting to acquisition, you have to focus on these things first.
Wow.
You don't think you need to, but you do.
Mm.
In the last 18 months, we've acquired the students have acquired, our members, I should say, have acquired 50 companies, just under 50 companies, and just over $90 million in transaction value. Okay.
Mm.
Look, I can give you the example of, Shane, who bought an e-commerce site and, blew it out of the water right away within a few months. I can give those examples of a guy who bought, a trailer company. I can give examples of people that, have bought home healthcare companies. Okay.
Mm.
Um, but it's all confidential. We sign NDAs with each other so that we can work together on those things. And the thing is like, the truth is that I don't really care
Mm.
if any of our members buy a company and have success in the first 90 days or year. Okay. And don't punch me in the face for this. I don't care if they don't have success in the first 90 days or year, because again, this is not, right? This is not, I'm going to flip a company in 90 days and make a mill. Like, that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
This is a career, but you own it, right?
Mm.
And one of the things that I share with people is like, look, I want you to create a 3 to 5 year plan, because that's where the scoreboard is. We've been around for 18 months. Doesn't matter. Right. And so build a 3 to 5 year plan. Okay.
Mm.
Work that plan. Okay. And the truth is, it's probably going to take you 7 to 10 years to do it. Okay. And along the way, you'll learn and things will change and you'll reiterate and life will
Wow.
go on. Right.
Wow.
And I got to tell you, by the time you get to years 6 and 7, I mean, everything's kind of downhill and you really have a lot of momentum
Mm.
behind you and your company and the wealth that you're building and the impact you're having in your team. And, I mean, it really starts to feel downhill after you get over that hurdle.
That's exciting. Well, listen, we're out of time, but I want to just really reiterate to everybody.
Yep.
The link is here. It's in Amazon. Buy then build, right here in the comments. 99 cents. Then you take the ebook receipt, you forward it to buythenbuild.com. Right here.
Bonus at buythenbuild.com.
Bonus at buythenbuild.com. That's the email, bonus@buythenbuild.com. And you get a $99 special Q&A 5-hour gold. And then you get the tool,
The modeling tool.
the modeling tool.
Yeah.
Amazing. And Jeff's throwing in the link for acquisitionlab.com. I know you can only take 1 out of 4, but Walker, this is amazing. And
There's
yeah,
also, if they go to buythenbuild.com, they can also get the 3-day video series.
sweet.
No charge. Yeah.
And I saw you on the TED stage or one of those big stages, and it was amazing. I
Well,
mean,
thank you. Yeah.
great speaker too. So, Walker, super proud of you, my friend. You're number one for a reason. We'll see what happens this next week with some of the bestseller lists, but I am so excited for you, and just keep helping people.
Kary, it's been so great. Thanks for having me on here today.
All right, man. We'll share this everywhere. You have a great day. Okay.
You too. Thank
See
you.
ya. Bye.